Hey everybody, welcome to the Stupid City Committee bonus episode. Today we're talking with Do Not Eat about the Philadelphia tax abatement, the art house, and some other fun stuff. This is the full interview from the official Stupid City video, so check that out too if you haven't already. We lost the first few minutes of the interview, but you didn't miss anything too juicy. The only context is that we weren't sure this was going to be the take, but we decided it would be. And this is audio only, so feel free to listen to it as you would a podcast, as you go about your day. Maybe do some chores, maybe you're on the way to work, maybe you're about to play your favorite video game. So thanks so much for your support of the channel, and enjoy. And have a good day at work, and good luck with your game. Could you, for posterity's sake, could you introduce yourself, your pronouns, what you've been doing and stuff?
Hey everyone, I'm Do Not Eat, or if you prefer, I'm Justin. Since this is an interview thing, I usually use my actual name for that. Pronouns are he and him, and I do a YouTube series called Franklin, which is based on the city of Philadelphia, where I use city skylines to show how a city changes over time. And I do another series called Power, Politics, and Planning, which is also using city skylines to explain sort of urban policy and how that affects regular people, right?
Could you talk about your relationship to Philadelphia?
I came to Philadelphia in 2011, I think, maybe 2012. I don't remember when I started college. I came here. I went to Drexel University. I had my soul crushed and just generally eviscerated by it. Managed to graduate. Been living in the city ever since. Pretty much always West Philadelphia. Pretty much always in various row houses. It's a wonderful city to live in. It's still cheap. If you want to move here, you can. It's a nice place. That's my relationship with Philadelphia. I enjoy living here, and it is very nice.
Awesome. Would you talk a little bit about what you mean by your soul was crushed at Drexel?
Oh, easy. Well, I mean, it's sort of a disaster area of a school. One of the developers that was building student housing, bought my apartment building and tried to demolish it while I was in finals. And during that same time, my senior design partner sexually assaulted one of my friends, and the school made me still present with him. And then what else happened? No, that was the main event that just made me say fuck everything.
Yeah.
I know at some point when I do a video on upzoning, I'm going to talk about the being kicked out of my apartment part.
Well, is that an incoming Franklin episode?
That'll be like a power, politics, and planning on zoning in general. I think some of the unintended consequences of upzoning and what it's like to be, demolition evicted. It's not fun.
Yeah, I can imagine. So tell me what you would want to talk about.
So, the big thing here is we got to talk about sort of, how. So not every city is New York City or San Francisco, right? Where it's the zoning is what's holding back absolutely every kind of development. So, I'd want to talk about the 10-year tax abatement here in Philadelphia, right? And, first thing is okay, how do property taxes work? So, when you're paying property taxes, you're taxed on the land value and also what's called improvements, right? And improvements are everything you put on your land. So, a building or a driveway or, anything you put there. And that's assessed by a city assessor after you put it there or on a recurring basis. and then you pay taxes on that. In Philadelphia, it's about 1.4% a year, right? And that funding is used for a lot of local services, but primarily schools, right? And of course, this is there's a lot of people who criticize this system, especially the followers of Henry George, who say you should only be taxed on land and not on your improvements, because that would result in more efficient land use. Because you in the current system, you're punished for more intensive land use. Like you have to pay more money on an apartment building than on a house, even though the apartment building is the higher and better land use in most cases. So, have a sip of beer there. Now, in Philadelphia in 1997, right, we're in a very different situation from today. You have a city with a population that's been declining for a long time, and we didn't have such a favorable zoning code as we do now. Back then, like, it was, as far as I know, it was illegal to build like just a regular row house, because that's just how zoning codes work. They tend to make stuff, the most common vernacular housing stock, like, just illegal. I don't know if that's actually true. I'd have to look at some facts there, right? So they come up with the idea that in order to stimulate new development on Philadelphia's abundant vacant land, and maybe improve or renovate some of the abandoned buildings, of which we had a lot of, and we still have a lot of, they would implement the 10-year tax abatement, right? So the tax abatement applies to improvements, right? So if you, say, own a house, right, and you add, let's say you add like an extension in the back and you put a kitchen in there, right? And the assessor comes by and says this improvement is worth $25,000 or so, right? And so you then get the 10-year tax abatement on that, so you don't pay taxes on that extra $25,000 assessed value for 10 years, right? So this applies to all new construction and substantial renovation in the city. Absolutely everything gets the 10-year tax abatement. What this effectively means is that today in 2009, today in 2019, we have the tax abatement, or we have the tax base of 2009 for the city of 2019. And 2009 was when, basically the year when the city stopped losing population. So, overall, we're kind of worse off.
So you're saying that, like, Philadelphia is operating with a budget from 10 years ago?
Yes, basically, especially with regard to the school district. We have a couple other sources of tax revenue. We have the highest wage tax in the nation, to my knowledge. It's about 4.5%. But in terms of property taxes, we're back. We have the 2009 tax base for the city of 2019.
And so, are there challenges because, like, Philadelphia has outgrown that budget? Like, have things improved, or like has more development happened as a result?
The development that has resulted is kind of there's been problems just with the incentive structure that the 10-year tax abatement encourages, right? Because since you're taxed on your improvements, right, but you don't have to pay them for 10 years, if your improvements depreciate over those 10 years, you're coming out ahead. So, if you build a crappy building, that helps you a lot more than if you build a good building. So, there's been a lot of just really bad buildings put up. Just low quality construction. Everything's full of leaks. Everything's falling apart. And that's, I'm not going to say it's intentional, but it is incentivized. and there's a lot of new construction happening where renovation could occur, and there's and none of it's contributing to the tax base, right? We have, especially with like new mid-rise construction going up. A lot of people come in, and it's not helping the schools out. It's not helping the city out. It's just sitting there and not paying taxes. Yeah.
Is it helping out someone?
Well, it's helping out landlords and developers.
Right. That was my suspicion from reading about this. I also found this really hilarious website that you might know about called phillytaxabatement.com. And
oh yes, that's a good one. Yeah.
It's written like one of those websites that like a company makes during a union drive that's like, here's how the union doesn't have your best interest at heart, and how the company does.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the one that just posts to Twitter like every hour, like which buildings got the tax abatement.
Oh no, what's that? I should look that up.
Let me look up the Twitter account.
Is it PH?
It's just PHL_abatements.
Mm-hmm. Oh, this is like one of those every lot accounts, except
depressing. Yeah.
Dystopian. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, you're abated on every improvement you do. So even if you put up like the Grover House, you would pay no taxes on Grover House.
Is the Grover House the same thing as the Art House?
No. Grover House is old meme from somethingawful.com, where one of the admins of the military forum was putting up an addition to his house that he made. He built it like on his own, and there was like load bearing drywall, and he put like insulation under the steps, and he got because the city inspector wouldn't certify his construction, he just took the test to become a city inspector and then approved it himself. He also like melted some siding when he was grilling. There's a thread on Twitter. Grover House is funny.
Oh wow. This is new to me. Were you around for Something Awful?
Yes. Well, I was a lurker for a while, and then when I was able to manage my own money, I bought an account at a dead 10-year-old comedy forum.
Wow. See, I didn't even know that you had to buy an account to it.
Oh yeah, it's that's how they keep the riffraff out.
Well, I was like lurking like weird Twitter in 2012 or whatever, and then I learned that like most of the people who were big on there were from Something Awful, right? Or from something called like a Left Forum.
Yeah, pretty much. That was there was some kind of exodus back in the day, and after the golden age of the forums, I think I joined the forums in like 2009 or so.
Wow.
Right after I got out of my edgy internet atheist phase.
Is that like 4chan and stuff?
No, it was. I don't think I was ever on 4chan. Thank God. Yeah.
Anyway, so you talked a little bit about the beginning of the 10-year tax abatement.
Yes.
Would you say like was the reasoning behind it to like revitalize the market? Like, were there buzzwords that were used?
So the old adage for Philadelphia is that we have New York construction prices and Baltimore rents, right? So it's very much a union town. So the idea was, well, if we do this 10-year tax abatement, we will just generally what's the word? We'll reduce the cost of maybe not construction, but certainly property taxes, right? Because this is if you don't have the money to do subsidies, which Philadelphia does not, you can always borrow from yourself in the future by doing tax abatements or something like that, right? And if you have enough access to finance, a tax abatement is basically a subsidy.
And was it would you say that like it has been a successful endeavor?
Um, I would say, it's probably created more growth, but is growth good? Is like growth an inherent good? And I'm gonna say, maybe not, right? Just because we've lost so much tax revenue, and the amount the city has grown since the tax abatement was introduced is like not that much. Certainly not notably more than any other East Coast city. Like in terms of percentage, I don't know. Maybe it is. I haven't run the math on that. It's not like, but the lost tax revenue and the state of our schools does not justify the tax abatement. Uh,
Hmm. And is there, you may sort of mention a little bit, but like, why is Philly, am I allowed to say Philly if I'm not from
yes,
there?
you can say whatever you want. Just don't say the sixth. Don't say the sixth borough. Uh,
The sixth borough? Oh, is that like
that's what the New Yorkers
an epithet?
say. And yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. I will not say that. I don't think I like New York.
It's a wise decision.
Thank you. So is there something like unique to the way Philly is or operates that makes it have Baltimore rents with New York construction prices? I mean, you mentioned unions. Like, are there other factors that contribute to it being in this situation?
I'd say a big factor are the row houses, because Philly and Baltimore are very similar in that there's a lot of row houses, right? And most of them are fairly cheap row houses. Most of them, they're small row houses, 2 stories, 15 feet wide, maybe 60 feet deep. It's not like it's not like a luxury house. It's a tiny little row house, and it's cheap and cheerful. And you can, a lot of places they're still under $100,000 in the city, right? It's like really easy to become a homeowner here, as it is in Baltimore as well. It's kind of like, well, how high can we drive the rents when someone can just go buy a row house in South Philly or North Philly even, and and they can finance this fairly easily. So I would say the row houses are like a big factor, and another factor is that we just there are. I'd say there are just less people moving into Philly. Because we got New York City, we got Washington D.C., we got Boston. This is where all the businesses are moving. And here in Philly, we're just kind of like, well, we'll take in the refuse.
Well, you got Comcast, right? That's exciting.
We got Comcast. That's a big one.
Everyone loves It's like a famously loved company, right?
Oh yeah, everyone loves Comcast. It's so great. They certainly haven't just shut off my internet with no warning recently. Although that only took 45 minutes to get resolved. I guess it wasn't that bad.
That's pretty good. I mean, if you have a monopoly,
Yeah.
you can do anything you want. So 45 minutes.
This is absolutely true, yes.
Yeah, I think I'm on Comcast right now, by the way.
So if we just get cut off right now, we know who to blame.
Right.
I'm also on Comcast right now.
Very cool. I love being monitored. So with the tax abatement, you mentioned the schools are suffering as like, who is the winner of the tax abatement and who is the loser, if it can be depicted in those clear terms? Maybe it can.
All right, so we have, I will say this, a few people who we might consider working class do benefit from the tax abatement, right? Because, again, it's relatively easy to become a homeowner in Philadelphia, certainly compared to any other large East Coast city, apart from maybe Baltimore, right? So if you're like a kind of working class guy who, still owns, or gal, or non-binary pal, who owns a row house, right, that you bought for fairly cheap, and you make some improvements, it's like, well, you're not going to be paying property taxes on your improvements like immediately, and that's nice, especially if you're like upgrading appliances from 1960 or whatever. But the real beneficiaries are, your big ticket developers, Councilman Alan Dom being one of them. So obviously he has a pretty strong pretty strong incentive to keep that tax abatement in place. And your beneficiaries of tax abatements in the city are, especially luxury developers, people who are putting the most building up are benefiting from the tax abatement the most.
Great. And yeah, that is a perfect segue to the next portion, which is like, who you mentioned one person by name, who is like behind or in favor of the tax abatement, and who is fighting against it.
So pretty much every activist group, I would say, in Philly is against the tax abatement in one form or another. Like, even some of the pro-business activist groups are against the tax abatement. So I know like one group that's like really against it, and they've been actively campaigning is against it is 215 People's Alliance, and they've been showing up to meetings and just yelling at people like, get rid of this goddamn tax abatement. Like, everyone's against it again, apart from city council. I think Helen Jim is against it. I don't remember. I don't know everything offhand. I didn't put those notes down.
That's okay. Yeah, I can drag the individual council people on my own time.
Okay.
So you did mention Dom.
Yeah, I did mention Alan Dom. Yeah, or more like Alan Dumb.
Yeah, Alan Dom. We're putting you on blast here.
Yeah.
I have it on good authority that he owns 437 properties in Philadelphia.
That's a bunch. I didn't know he owned that much. I thought he owned like a couple buildings.
Yeah, well, he probably owns a couple of really big buildings.
Most likely, yeah.
And he has received $12.3 million in 2018 alone in tax abatements.
It's a couple $1 million that should go to the kids, but apparently can't have that. Got to go to Alan Dumb.
So are you able to talk about Alan Dumb and what he's been doing or who he is?
Like, he's someone who's been like off my radar until like recently. Now that I know that he's just a big landlord, right? He's been a council person for a very long time now. I know that much. Well, the first result on Google is Alan Dom Real Estate, not Alan Dom Council Person. So
that's a good sign.
President of the Greater Philadelphia Association of Realtors. Under Alan's leadership and vision, he changed GPAR's mission statement from the voice for real estate in Philadelphia to the voice for Philadelphia. Because, I don't know, apparently we're all landlords here in Philadelphia in some way or another.
That's awesome. Great. So Alan Dumb sucks.
Yeah.
I guess we can bridge from tax abatement to art house. So what is the art house?
So this is like one of the really egregious examples of the tax abatement in action, but also like state subsidies and other just general bullshit, right? So there's this developer named Carl Dranoff, right? Now, he's done a couple of, I would say, good buildings in Philadelphia, to be honest. He did a renovation of the old Pennsylvania Railroad freight station in West Philly. It's called the Left Bank. He did a renovation of the old Victor Talking Machine Company building in Camden, and that's, there's a couple of new builds he did, like a big skyscraper in Rittenhouse Square. This is all in the sort of mid to upper end of the luxury apartment or condo market, right? It's stuff that like I cannot afford to live there, obviously. So what we need to talk about is his latest, and it's not even latest because this has been on the drawing board for a long time. His latest building, which just had a groundbreaking a couple days ago, it's called the Art House, right? That's Haus. That's why I was talking about Grover House earlier. This is 108 units. Each unit is called a house, Haus. There's 108 houses on Hausen. This would be Hausen if it's German. In a 47-story building, right? And on this lot, it's a big lot. That makes it less dense than, the 18th century row houses that are on adjacent lots to it, right? Which is frankly incredible. Very low density, very tall building. It's essentially, a fat pencil tower, right? So Karl Dranoff got a bunch of state grants for this program through the Pennsylvania Redevelopment Assistance Capital Program. He was holding out for $19 million, but only got $1.4 million. And he held out for a long time. He was pitching this since 2015 when the Philly International Records building was demolished for this project, and it was a vacant lot up until then. He got most of the million up front, and then the state threw him $100,000 about every year or so, and said, all right, we'll give you a little more, but we're not going to give you the $19 million. So it was supposed to be the SLS International Hotel, so it would make a whole bunch of jobs. But it instead of that, he wound up, since he didn't get the financing he wanted from the state, he was like, okay, we're not going to do the hotel that creates the jobs, which is, a qualification for the Redevelopment Assistance Capital Program. Instead, we're going to do a bunch of incredibly expensive condos, right? So
does he still qualify for the redevelopment assistance program with the change in the type of building?
I don't think anyone's tested that yet. I feel like someone could probably sue to get the grants revoked if they had the legal resources to do so. No one's tried that yet.
Interesting. Okay, so lawyers who are listening might.
Yeah, exactly. If you're a pro bono lawyer, listen up. So the thing is, of course, this also qualifies for the tax abatement, right? This incredible high luxury, super ultra luxury, gigantic, one apartment per floor tower is, this pays no property taxes effectively. Compared to what was on the site before, which was a 3-story brick building, and a very pretty terracotta building next to it. Both of those were torn down, and those compared to what's being put up now, this building is going to effectively pay no property taxes for 10 years.
Sounds great. So when I was researching this, I learned that do you know about the Bauhaus connection? Would you talk about that?
I mean, it's a marketing thing, right? He said it's a combination of Bauhaus and art, right? Which is like, well, the Bauhaus was already a school of art, right? He's not going to call it the Bauhaus Tower, I guess. It's a dumb name. It's just dumb. That's all I can say about that. There's no real Bauhaus connection here that I can see, other than it's modernist, I guess. Certainly doesn't have any of the politics of the Bauhaus.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe they'll put a big portrait of Walter Gropius in when you walk in the door, or Mies van der Rohe.
Yeah, and we can do live cam footage of them rolling over in their grave.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Gropius more than Mies.
Why is that?
Well, Mies was the guy who made modernism palatable to the capitalist class. I mean, just by using incredibly high luxury materials for modernist buildings. He made modernism expensive.
I've never heard of it put that way. That's very cool. I found a quote from Dranoff himself talking about the art house connection, saying that excess was replaced by beauty that could also meet the needs and desires of real people. And to hear you describe 2 historic buildings torn down to be replaced by a 1 or 2 unit per floor ultra luxury high rise is just, those two things are so incompatible to me.
The one thing I'm worried about is so a lot of the urbanist community in Philadelphia is kind of carrying water for this. It's because obviously this should be Okay, let me give you an example of another building which is on a similarly sized lot. It's a little bigger in my neighborhood, right? It went up on the site of the Christ Community Church, which was demolished last year. Gigantic, beautiful church, not in a great shape, but they demolished it and they're putting up a 6/1, right? That's I think it's a 6/1, might be a 5/1, but 6 stories of engineered lumber construction over a 1-story concrete podium, right? So this 6-story building is going to have 278 units, as opposed to this 108 unit building, which is 47 stories tall. Like this should be an 800 or 900 unit building, right? I feel like, you know, if we're building this close to Center City, you should put a lot of people there, right? Because if you can put a lot of people on these valuable lots, then you don't have to start tearing down occupied buildings elsewhere in the city to build density, right? I mean, once we're given the vacant lot, we should just build dense housing there, as opposed to build an ultra luxury housing, which, you know, maybe 108 families are gonna, you know, live in. I mean, obviously you have some people using it as a pied a terre or like an investment thing, right? That's less than, you know, is popularly conceived. But you know, only 108 units on this site is irresponsible.
Right, right. Could you talk a little bit about like the neighborhood that it's going up in?
So it's Center City, right? It's on Broad and Spruce, I think. So it's going up right across from. It's in the sort of University of the Arts area. Maybe that's why you called it the Art House. I don't know. It's not going to be affordable to university art students, I can tell you that much. So, you know, this is probably a little wealthier area, like, already, but it's not like an ultra wealthy area, you know. I mean, it's close to Center City, so I don't know exactly. All I know is that, like, one time I stayed in the DoubleTree Hotel there. That's and there's the Kimmel Center's across the street. So, and I'm looking at it on Google Maps. My favorite building, the Drake apartment building, is right nearby. So that'll be overshadowed. They're gonna ruin the views of that.
So if we can, do you have more stuff about the art house that you want to share?
Let me think. The one thing was like, people are saying, okay, you know, folks are gonna move in and then they're gonna, you know, contribute to the economy, right? You can have 108 ultra wealthy families. You know, they're gonna move in. They're going to somehow contribute to the economy, right? And this is why this is good. Okay, so Mayor Kenny is saying, you know, this is great. This is an example of success of, I believe he straight up said this is an example of the success of, you know, the 10-year tax abatement program. I don't recall offhand. I might have to go back and look that up. But you know, folks who were sort of carrying water for this and saying, yeah, this is actually a good thing that we're handing out all this money. You know, the argument is that, you know, when your high-earning families move in here, they'll contribute to the economy. And how are they going to do that? Well, have you ever worked for a business that moved, right? Because all businesses always move to the same place, and that's closer to the boss's house. So, you know, presumably, you know, these 108 folks who move in here probably, you know, they're not making, like, they're not wage laborers, you know, they probably own businesses, so they'll move their businesses into Center City, Philadelphia, right? So this 108 units, you know, maybe it moves, you know, 500, 600, 1,000 jobs into Center City, right? So, you know, you will wind up with a lot more pressure to develop housing, because suddenly all these people who may have been working in the suburbs or another city, now they have to find housing in Philadelphia or nearer to it. So, this is like a lot of people like try to fearmonger about like, well, all these units are going to be vacant and owned by investors, and this is not going to house anyone. And that would be better than the reality, which is we're going to have people move in, and then they're going to drag their workforce with them.
Mm-hmm. And is that because it'll bring up the rents and stuff?
Well, it'll bring up the rents indirectly by having the businesses move in, and then the employees got to move in. I don't know exactly who Karl Dranoff is targeting here, but it if we're doing this from a perspective of this is good because growth is good, it's gonna it causes more growth, and this is very good for a particular moneyed class, landlords, business owners, so on and so forth. But if you're just a renter or something like that, this is causing more development pressure. You're more likely your rent might go up, or your building might be demolished and replaced with something denser. The main thing is here, this would be a lot better if it were denser housing that didn't house ultra wealthy people.
Right, especially since it's coming into a city that's operating on a budget from 10 years ago.
Yes.
Sweet. Well, I want to extrapolate a little bit to like maybe zoom out to all of Philly and like maybe even nationally. Like, could you talk about how this might be like both a class and a racial issue in the city, and like how the state has been managing the affairs of the ruling class and whatnot?
So should I just expand on that?
If you want. Yeah, maybe that wasn't a good setup.
Yeah, it's like this is not a question. I gotta think now.
Okay, sorry. So
Yeah.
how is this an issue that affects everybody? And we also haven't talked about Philly being segregated at all.
I mean, Philly's still pretty segregated. I would say I believe we have a much better, we have a fairly high home ownership rate, even, amongst any minority populations. Again, it's easier to buy a house here than anywhere else, and it's not quite as, destructive as it is in other cities where, we have, homeowners holding out and rejecting new development. I'd say it's not quite as bad here as it is other places. The 10-year tax abatement certainly hasn't helped in terms of like keeping people in the city, right? Because it's the schools are in such bad shape, just from a simple lack of funding, and also state control and a bunch of other stuff. This 10-year tax abatement has helped no one who isn't already in the moneyed classes. And the way the state handles all this stuff is we're gonna give out more tax incentives. We're gonna let people just build and not pay taxes for a long time. I mean, part of West Philadelphia is a Keystone Opportunity Zone, where not only will you get the 10-year tax abatement, you will also pay no state taxes of any kind. I think that's how it works. I don't recall the exact Keystone Opportunity Zone thing. It may also be, it's overall you don't pay a lot of taxes, right? We're just handing out incentive after incentive after incentive, and I don't understand what we're chasing anymore, right? There's plenty of development, right? There's people moving into Philly. We don't need these tax incentives anymore to get people to put up buildings. I mean, you basically just have to, let the people build and then tax them, right? I mean, in this city, like, it's not even like zoning's a huge barrier in a lot of neighborhoods. You can put up row houses by right. You can put up apartment buildings a lot of places by right. It's just, why are we chasing so much development. Why aren't we trying to, get some tax revenue?
Right. Interesting. Makes you think about why we're not doing that. So what are there steps forward that folks who are affected by this can take, or that like people not affected by it can take? What do we do?
See, that's a good question. I mean, the big one is just agitating for repealing the 10-year tax abatement. That's a good start. Stuff like the Keystone Opportunity Zone, I feel like that's more difficult because that's like, if I recall correctly, that's a federal thing. It's not like something that can be gotten rid of so quickly. I mean, it's all about local organization. It's and it starts with organizations like 215 People's Alliance or the Philadelphia Tenants Union, or stuff like that. And it's all about organization. You gotta twist these council persons' arms until they start acting more in the residents' interests and not so much in real estate developers' interests. Of course, we just had a council election, and pretty much all the incumbents won, except my council person, Janny Blackwell, who was replaced by Jamie Gauthier. So that seems like a net positive, because she was, definitely a very pro-developer council person.
I'm glad you got her out.
Yeah, it was. She was in there for 30 years, I believe. So we got, and then her husband was in there for the previous 20 years. So
Jesus, there's just like legitimate dynasties at this point.
Yes.
Yeah, in my ward in Chicago, we just replaced a 28-year incumbent who was like very developer friendly with like a black organizer who believes housing is a human right. So
very nice.
Could be exciting.
We have a city planner who is now our councilwoman, and she was it was the most expensive council race in recent memory, because I guess a nominally urbanist political action campaign called Philadelphia 3.0 just shoved all their resources at this one race, and they are they're I guess they're a fairly pro-business group, and they are they're run by a group of urbanists, but they're the organization's controlled, or I think the president of the organization, the head honcho is owns a parking company, so obviously acting in the interest of increasing the value of the parking lots by abolishing stuff like parking minimums, so that they can redevelop them into a higher use.
Wow.
Which I agree with, in principle, but I also don't like that all this stuff is entirely profit motivated, rather than we gotta densify the city for reasons of, say, averting climate change. Also, the guy was on the board of some anti-Muslim think tank, I think, which is kind of gross.
So he's no good.
Yeah.
Yeah, start over. Do you do any organizing? Are you part of the People's Alliance?
No, I'm basically a hermit.
Yeah.
I don't do a lot of I don't do a whole lot of organizing work. I mean, Philly DSA especially has been like just an incredibly bad organization until recently. I believe the DSA Lilac, which was a sub organization, it was a caucus, I don't know what it is, they just won a whole bunch of positions, but that was after they voted to secede from DSA, because the organization was a cesspool of liberalism. The leadership wouldn't let people say their pronouns for some reason.
Yikes.
Don't quote me on that. But it's I had to state my pronouns when I was signing up for the local grocery co-op. DSA won't let you do that for some reason.
Wow. How do you like your grocery co-op?
It's okay. I can go there. I can buy groceries. They never have iceberg lettuce, which is frustrating because it's the best kind for burgers.
Do you do a lot of grilling?
Yes. I got an offset smoker. It's fun.
Oh yeah, I think I've seen some of your like live tweets of your grilling experiences. Cool. So, was there any other notes about tax abatements or art house stuff that you didn't get to talk about?
Good question. I think I'm just about through. And the only thing I could say is like one of the things about a city like Philadelphia as opposed to New York City, San Francisco, Washington D.C. It's not all about supply and demand, right? It's about not the whole reason we don't have enough housing is that stuff is just not zoned right. I mean, I'm in a city where developers regularly don't build up to the maximum the zoning code allows. They'll add parking where no parking is required. The stuff goes beyond just liberalizing zoning codes. You also have to you have to go beyond that. You have to good development takes a little bit more than just that. That's about all I can say about that.
What would you do, like, if you were in charge of this? What would you do?
Well, if I were like just completely in charge of the city.
Right. Well, or in whatever capacity that you needed to do what you want to do.
Well, I would say mostly public housing in underperforming areas. I mean, like areas that don't necessarily areas that allow me to displace the fewest people. And I would obviously this is a magic thing is public housing. We can't do it right now because that's coming up in my next episode, public housing part 2. We'll see how bad it's gotten over the past 10, 20 years, 30 years really. I don't know. Repealing the tax the tax abatement also number one. Obviously, that's what I'm talking about the whole time. Just generally being less willing to grovel at the foot of big real estate. Right? These folks got a whole bunch of money. These folks are we don't need to lick their boots. We don't need to give them all these incentives to get them to build stuff. We got the zoning for a much denser city than we have today. So I wouldn't say we've cleared that hurdle, but we've we're much better off than a lot of other cities. We're not packed full, even considering our current zoning situation. There's a lot of vacant land out there. There's a lot of there's a lot of just places where we could put a crap load of housing. I don't see why we gotta incentivize everyone.
Yeah, especially if they're going to build the art house.
Yeah, exactly. That sort of building should have no subsidies of any kind.
Right.
It should have negative subsidies.
Yes, for sure. Okay, cool. Well, just to wrap up, what is there anything good happening in Philadelphia that you're excited about?
Lots of good stuff's happening in Philadelphia. Let me think. I think good stuff's happening in Philadelphia. Transit system is stagnant. Developments are all, terrible, ugly buildings. What is good that's happening here? We got rid of Janny Blackwell, which I think is good. We don't know if that's good yet. We'll have to see what happens. Apparently the mayor is trying to double the amount of protected bike lanes in the city from 4.5 miles to 9 miles. So I guess that's good. but he promised to put in 30 miles of them, so that's bad. We got electric bikes in the bike share system. That's good, but they're never charged, so that's bad.
It's a good start. That's good. That's a good.
Yeah.
We can go off that.
Yeah,
How do you feel about Larry Krasner? Does he figure into any of this?
Good question, because I didn't talk a lot about criminal justice at all here. Krasner is good, of course, but he does. I think he does mostly, criminal justice. I don't know how that would necessarily figure into development unless someone's, actively doing crimes, which a lot of developers are, obviously. But those are like financial crimes, or like, shutting people's water off or something like that. Some stuff which is okay,
Right. Yeah, I just mentioned him because he's sort of like he's the person I know of in Philly politics. But yeah, cool. Well, you've mentioned some things already, but is there anything that you would like to plug for yourself?
Go watch my YouTube channel. It's called Do Not Eat 01, I think. Is it 01 on YouTube? Yes, it is. I always got to look that up. So yeah, that's my main thing to plug. Go watch my YouTube. Learn about urban policy when I'm not rambling so much.
Yes, go watch it right now. Great. Well, thanks so much for your time. I'll try to sort of stitch this together into a video. I might have to get in touch to like clarify or maybe even re-record stuff. Hopefully not, but
well, we'll figure out what happens. I mean,
and thanks for
some of the stuff I'm not sure about. So,
well, I'll take care of the fact checking and I'll take the heat if anybody calls me on anything or calls you.
Okay.
Thanks for dealing with my my nervous amateurness.
No, that's fine. You sounded good. Everyone likes you.
Sweet. Well, anything else you'd like to add?
Abolish the 10-year tax abatement and ICE. And I don't know what else needs to be getting rid of. I think that's it.
That sounds good. Cool. Well, thanks a lot, Justin. Take care.
Problem.
Good luck on your next bike ride.
Thanks. I'll need it.
All right. See ya.
All right. Bye.
Okay. That was the interview. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.